All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angela Kantor. I am a rising senior at Holy Names Academy, and today I will be addressing to what extent does interferon beta therapy inhibit relapses in patients with relapsing-remitting multiple sclerosis, also known as RRMS. So just to give you a bit of an overview, I will be reviewing what is MS, what is interferon beta therapy, how it works, how that relates to my hypothesis. Then I'll be talking about the advanced trial and the transform study. So first of all, what is MS? So we all have nerves that carry electrical impulses from our brains to our bodies, and they allow us to move our muscles and feel sensations. And nerves have this insulating layer made up of fats and proteins known as the myelin sheath that facilitates quick and efficient nerve impulses. And we need those strong nerve impulses to do activities such as eating and walking. And MS occurs when one's immune system just attacks the central nervous system and causes injury to that myelin sheath. And demyelination reduces the efficiency of those nerve impulses and can cause them to slow or even stop. And that can cause symptoms such as loss of the ability to walk, loss of the ability to eat, fatigue. The list goes on, unfortunately. And MS can clinically present in a couple different forms, PPMS, primary progressive MS, or relapsing-remitting MS, where one has relapses of symptoms and they're followed by some kind of recovery, or at least to an extent, and then someone can have another relapse, and that one could be worse than your last one. So just here's a image of the brain depicting lesions, the white spots where we can see injury to the central nervous system. An example would be the one that's captured in the red circle. So just here's some background info that might help you understand how interferon beta therapy works. So interferons are secreted by our white blood cells, and their job is to inhibit the replication of viruses. And T cells are a kind of white blood cell that recognize antigens, and if they recognize an antigen of a pathogen or a foreign invader, they can prompt an immune response, and that's how inflammation occurs. And then T cells have pro-inflammatory profiles and anti-inflammatory ones as well. And B cells produce antibodies that attack the foreign invaders that are flagged down by the T cells, so they also contribute to the inflammatory pathway. So how exactly does this treatment work? Well, it penetrates into the central nervous system through the blood-brain barrier. And then from there, it reduces T cell activation and antigen presentation, as well as it reduces the activity of the Th1 pro-inflammatory profile of T cells, and then also decreases the replication of B cells. So it basically limits the activity of agents that promote inflammation, but at the same time, on top of that, promotes an anti-inflammatory agent. So my hypothesis would be that interferon beta therapy would be a highly effective treatment for patients with RRMS because interferon beta reduces regulation of pro-inflammatory agents while also increasing expression of anti-inflammatory agents. So it would counteract central nervous system inflammation and reduce the frequency of MS relapses. Some of my methods for investigating this topic would be reviewing the existing literature out there, reporting all these studies that test its efficacy. And I considered the prevalence and severity of adverse events. And adverse events are unintended effects that can occur with taking a drug, even when it is administered correctly. We'll be focusing on patients with RRMS, and we will look at the effectiveness among different interferon beta formulas. So first, we have the advanced trial. It is comparing the effectiveness of the PEG interferon beta formula efficacy versus a placebo. And participants in the study could be assigned in 3 different groups: the placebo, or they could receive the 2 groups where, or they could have they could be one of the 2 groups where they were administered with the treatment. And that could be 125 micrograms of PEG interferon beta every 2 weeks, or that treatment every 4 weeks. And the relapse rate for the group that was taking the placebo was 0.397. And for the 2-week and 4-week groups, the relapse rate was 0.256 and 0.288 respectively. So it was noticeably lower than the placebo relapse rate, which points towards the efficacy of the treatment. And we saw some MS lesions on the MRI earlier in terms of the formation of new MS lesions that are available in MRI that we can see via MRI. They were reduced significantly by this treatment. So some of the adverse events in advance. Well, as you can see by these percentages here, the far extreme majority experienced some kind of adverse event at some point in the trial. However, they were somewhat mild headaches, injection site reactions, pyrexia, which is an elevated body temperature, or flu-like symptoms. So we also have the Transform study, and that's studying the efficacy of this drug called fingolimod versus the interferon beta formula. And fingolimod is a drug that one can take orally, and the interferon beta drug is injected. So basically, this study was double-blind, which means that neither the experimenter or the patient would know which treatment the patient received. But because fingolimod is taken orally and interferon beta is injected, the study had to be double dummy, which means that the patient would receive, two forms of the drug to take, but one of which should be the placebo. So they do not know which drug they got, and we can honor the double-blind setup of the study and protect the study's integrity. So to be eligible for the Transform study, they had to have history of at least one relapse and be between 18 and 55 years old. So we have the expanded disability status scale up here just to give a little context to some of the characteristics of the participants of the study. So the scale goes from 0 to 9.5, and the farther up the scale you go, the greater the MS symptoms are. This is basically a tool that one can use to assess MS disability, focusing on the patient's ability to walk. It goes up in 0.5 increments, and once you hit 6 on that scale, it's considered that you can no longer walk. And to be eligible for the Transform study, you had to be between 0 and 5.5. So these patients were, not on the brink of death or anything like that. In Transforms, participants could be in 3 separate groups. They could receive fingolimod in the 0.5 milligram dosage or the 1.25 milligram dosage, or they could receive the interferon beta treatment. And 2 people actually did die while on the fingolimod 1.25 treatment. So we can see the percentages here for the female population of MS, of participants in this trial. It's between 65 to 68%, where female MS does tend to be a little bit more prevalent in females, so that's not really surprising. If you direct your attention to all the way at the bottom of this chart, you can see that the mean EDSS was somewhere in the 2 range. If you count for standard deviation, that would put the average EDSS between like 1-ish, 3-ish. So that basically means that these patients weren't severely progressed in terms of MS. They were a little bit more towards the beginning where symptoms were starting to worsen. And here are the results of Transforms. So actually the annualized relapse rate was lower in fingolimod. For the 0.5 milligram group of fingolimod, the relapse rate was 0.16, and the 1.25 milligram group, it was 0.20. And in the interferon beta group, the relapse rate was 0.33. And as we can see by the p-values up here, when you compare interferon beta to the fingolimod, the p-value is less than 0.001. So that means that that we can likely attribute these results to the treatment given instead of random chance. So there were some adverse events in Transforms. Again, the far majority experienced some kind during the trial, but a lot of them were mild to moderate. Serious adverse events were most frequent in the fingolimod 1.25 milligram group. And some of those were bradycardia and atrioventricular block, which refers to abnormal heart rhythm. There were some infections. We're talking about herpes virus infections here, but 93% were mild. And as you can see by these percentages, they were not very common, but they did occur throughout the trial. So here's just some additional information on interferon beta therapy. So there are some studies that seem to point towards it being somewhat effective against the Epstein-Barr virus, and that it added some protection against COVID-19 in patients with MS. And as we know, during the pandemic, the elderly were especially vulnerable, so that, may lead one to think, would interferon beta treatment be a good option for those that are elderly? And earlier I mentioned how MS is slightly more, or it is more prevalent in women. Well, some drugs like fingolimod are actually not so safe for women that are pregnant and breastfeeding. But interferon beta is considered to be a safe and effective drug for those women. So that might be a good option for those patients. And for the future, we can look at we can kind of look further into the question of its effectiveness against COVID and look at its effects on patients with long COVID. So my conclusion. So the numbers demonstrate that interferon beta is decently effective in reducing relapses. It has a reasonable safety profile. We did see some adverse events, but again, most of them were very mild. And fingolimod can be more effective. We saw those numbers, but as we just talked about, the treatment is unique to the patient. Here are my references. Just a big thank you to Dr. Pierre, my fellow research interns, all the amazing staff members at the Seattle Science Foundation. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and all the visiting physicians, and of course, today's listeners.
Great job. Thanks so much for teaching me about that. As an orthopedic surgeon, that's way outside of my normal wheelhouse, so I liked learning about it. What do you think the advantage was in the study you described to us in comparing the interferon therapy to the previous treatment options compared to just somebody who didn't have any treatment at all?
What specific kinds of advantages are you thinking?
Well, I was just thinking in general, if there's other drugs out there, like in the study you showed, and you chose a study that compared two drugs to each other. So to me, I would think that if I was comparing a study where I gave some multiple sclerosis patients interferon and some people didn't get treatment at all, even though they may see some benefit, that might not be the best option. But when you compare it to another drug that's out there, you get to see which one is really better. So I thought you did a really nice job in picking a study that helped us guide our therapy a little bit better, since we have a lot of options to treat these people. Thanks so much for doing that. That was great.
Thank you so much.